Hey there, everybody. It's Dr. Roto along with Adam Ronis, and we are with ScoutFantasySports.com. And right now we are talking about the Kansas City Chiefs fantasy outlook. Ronis, I love everything about the Chiefs this year, from Mahomes to Kelsey to Hunt to Watkins to Tyreek Hill. Get the Chiefs in your lineup.
Yeah, this has the makings of a really good offense, and they were last year too, just a little bit of a different dynamic now. Alex Smith is gone, and we know Smith over the years was conservative, but last year he actually was one of the most accurate deep passers in the NFL. Probably felt the pressure a little bit with Mahomes breathing it down his neck, and the Chiefs obviously decided to go in a different direction, let Smith go, and bring in Mahomes, who's an exciting young quarterback. So, yeah, basically all these guys are desirable in fantasy, and you're seeing them go pretty early in drafts as well.
All right, so let's talk about Mahomes, who I'm a big fan, but I do have a concern. It's the Brett Favre concern. I can see Mahomes throwing 27 touchdowns, but I could also see him throwing about 19 interceptions. And if you play in a league where it's minus 2 points per interception, that could hurt you over the season.
Yeah, it's something that we don't know. It's a possibility, as you mentioned, because a young quarterback sometimes, especially if you have a big arm, you think you can fit a ball in a window, and maybe in college you got away with it. In the NFL, it doesn't happen. So that's sometimes something that you learn on the job. One thing we've seen from Alex Smith in this offense the last couple of years, not a lot of turnovers. So it'll be interesting to see if Mahomes can limit those turnovers. I think, though, he's a nice QB2, especially if you compare him with a Matthew Stafford, a Phillip Rivers, someone like that. You draft that second quarterback with upside. If you're in a league, obviously, with trades, then you can move one of them. Maybe Mahomes becomes that Carson Wentz of last year, and you can count on him after a few weeks when you watch that and trade the other quarterback. Obviously, in the Fantasy Football World Championships, no trades. You want to have two quarterbacks. It's a 20-round draft, and you draft Mahomes as your backup, maybe as probably anywhere from QB 15 to 20, because I think there is some buzz on Mahomes, and he's becoming a little bit of a trendy pick, and he might get as high as QB 15.
Can I win a high-stakes league with Pat Mahomes as my starting quarterback?
I think today I would probably say no. Now, it also depends who your other quarterback is, but I don't think you want to go into the season with him as the guy you're leaning on, because you mentioned that there's some inexperience. Now, everything is set up around them really well, and we'll get into it. The other components of this offense, Andy Reid, as much as we complain about him, he usually has very successful teams in terms of fantasy. So everything is in place. It wouldn't be a surprise in the end of the year if we look and say he finishes a QB1, but I don't think you want to go into the season counting on him as a QB1.
But if I had Phillip Rivers, right, and I could use him for the first 6 or 7 weeks, and then maybe I use Mahomes for the last, 7-8 weeks, I think I could win with that. Look, Alex Smith, you are never going to win a Super Bowl with him.
But if you're doing the Rivers-Mahomes combo, I'm assuming you're taking Rivers first, right?
You're right. Or you know what I would love to do? Let's say if I had pick 12, I take them together or something like that. But getting back to my point, you are never winning a Super Bowl with Alex Smith, right? Because he stopped at some point. I think Mahomes has this upside, this next gear, which I'm very excited to see.
Well, I think the Chiefs agree with you. I think that's why they made this move. They drafted him for a reason, and they figured, okay, now is the time to turn it over to him. So I think the Chiefs have that same sentiment.
So last year in Vegas on Thursday night, Kareem Hunt goes insane. And I sit there in one of my drafts that I do with my friend Bill. We take Kareem Hunt number 2 overall in the draft. After week 5 or 6, we look like geniuses. And then all of a sudden, Andy Reid forgets that he's even there. And the guy goes like 5 weeks without getting over 50 yards rushing. And then, of course, the last couple of weeks, he starts doing well. I like Kareem Hunt, but is he going to be consistent enough for people to take him in round 1 of fantasy football?
Yeah, I think you could take him in round 1. This offense shapes up well, and some of the other components, and we'll get to them. Bringing in Sammy Watkins, another deep threat, that's going to open it up. I think the key here when we're trying to figure out the fantasy value of the Kansas City players is how much is there to go around, because there's a lot of good weapons here. With Hunt, it was clear. When he was fed the football, the Chiefs won games. When he wasn't, they didn't win. So I think you have to hope that there's a little bit more balance this year, because you did mention it, and I had Hunt in a couple leagues too. I mean, that middle of the season, we're sitting there for a while like, can we start this guy? And then finally, hopefully you made the playoffs in time during that stretch. They started feeding him the football a lot more. So it was very perplexing because they were winning when they fed him the football. And we're sitting here in the fantasy community saying, it's pretty simple. You give Kareem Hunt the football, you're winning games. Why are you going away from that?
I don't want to hear anything about Spencer Ware. I don't want to hear anything about Damian Williams. Spencer Ware, when I look up the word mediocre in the dictionary, there's a picture of Spencer Ware right there. I'm telling you, I am in on Hunt. I will probably take him with pick 8 or pick 9 in the first round.
Yeah, that's surely where he's going, and I have no problem. There's a couple other running backs in the range you can debate, but what Hunt did last year in his rookie year was extremely impressive. I mean, overall, the numbers were really good. He can pile up a ton of yards. He's explosive. He can break a big play. So this offense is definitely set up for a lot of success. So, yeah, I think Kareem Hunt definitely is someone you're looking at pick 7 and pick 8, especially if you want to start your draft with a running back and you miss out on the top elite ones that are going in the top 5, top 6.
All right, at wide receiver, they've got 2 very good ones. First of all, Tyreek Hill, super fast, I think is going to love playing with Mahomes. This guy can take a slant pattern, take it to the end zone. He can run deep patterns and go to the end zone. And then Sammy Watkins, you know he's from Fort Myers, down here where I am. I'm friends with his aunt. And I'm telling you, she said, which I knew to be true, that he was not a big city guy. He was never happy in L.A. He wanted to go to a smaller city. He found him in Kansas City. I think it's an ideal home. Now, that being said, I think Tyreek Hill is a late second, early third round pick, but I worry about Sammy Watkins. I don't see the targets. If Kelsey gets a bunch and Hunt gets a bunch and Hill gets a bunch, maybe I'm looking at 5 or 6 targets a game for Sammy Watkins. I think Sammy Watkins might be a bit overvalued this year.
Yeah, this is where it gets interesting here. We know Tyreek Hill is dynamic, and I know pretty much everyone at scoutfantasysports.com was on him last year. I know I had him in several leagues, and he was really good. Now, the problem is he only had 105 targets. That's not a lot for a guy that you're taking in many instances probably as a potential wide receiver 1, maybe a wide receiver 2 if it's on the 2-3 turn. So the question is, can he duplicate what he did last year if those targets remain in the vicinity of 105? It's a little difficult to do, but he's that special player where he can break big plays and he just has so much speed. And that's why it's possible he can do that. But I do have that slight concern if the target's around 105. Kelsey had about 120 last year, and his targets have gone up each and every year. And you know he's got to be featured heavily in this offense. He's one of the best tight ends in football. Now, Watkins, the talent is there. We know this. We saw the first couple years in Buffalo, but he was the main target there. Now, last year with the Rams, I don't know if we can read too much into that. Number one, he came to that team right before the start of the season.
He never gelled with that offense. He had
no training camp, no offseason. So at least here he gets the full offseason. But how many targets is he going to get? Because if you said 5 to 6 per game,
tops.
Well, yeah, because 5 per game, you're looking at 80 if he stays healthy. That's not enough because you're depending on what he did last year. He had 8 touchdowns, I think, on 39 receptions.
But what if I told you he gets 50 receptions, 780 yards, and 8 touchdowns? Is that possible?
It's possible, but I think with Watkins, you probably want to get him in round 6 is probably the right spot. But even then, with those numbers, is that enough? I think what you have to hope for is that could he surpass Tyreek Hill in targets? It's possible, right? Because
it's possible, but if they use them oppositely and they make Watkins a #1 receiver, but I don't see that. I think this is a big problem here. And I really think, and I love Tyreek Hill. I've been on this guy from day one. I have him in my dynasty leagues from day one. I'm just worried that there may not be enough targets for these guys and that they will be great real life players, but slightly overrated fantasy players.
Yeah, it's a big concern, and it's something that we kind of have to figure out here. I think training camp, maybe we'll get some idea. I know there's been a lot of talk how they have moved Watkins all over, and he likes it there. But remember, Mahomes hasn't worked. Well, look, he started 1 game last year. So he hasn't really worked with any of these guys. He could go out there and say, you know what? I love Watkins. He's my guy. I'm throwing him the ball. That's certainly possible.
Now, we haven't even talked about Travis Kelce yet. Maybe a little bit. You touched upon him. This guy's going in the 3rd round of every draft. He is a great big target. He's got good hands. He always wants the football. I'm a big Travis Kelce fan. That said, I'm not drafting him in the third round of any draft. It's not that I don't like him. I just don't like starting my team with a tight end that early. I think it boxes me in a corner, which I can't get out of.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I don't do it either. I don't know if there's a scenario where maybe I changed my mind, but I don't see it because when it's the second, third round, I just feel like there's too many good running backs and receivers to take there. And I know you could say, well, Kelsey's numbers kind of compared to wide receiver, and there's a big drop off at tight end, but it's something that I have not done. And we're able usually to find the tight ends a little bit later. Zach Ertz was one of those guys last year, and there's not a lot there for sure. Evan Ingram was a late round pick. Sometimes you can work the waiver wire and stream in and out. Obviously depends on the depth of your league. It's a little bit tougher to do in the Fantasy Football World Championship with 20 rounds. But I think you try and draft, two of those tight ends and hope to hit on one. But Kelsey, it's just a big price to pay in round 2. And of course, with tight ends, you always have to worry about the injury risk.
I can never knock somebody for doing it. It's just a strategy that I don't like. I always find that later on in my roster, I'm missing a running back. I'm missing a receiver. I'm missing that one ingredient to win.
Yeah, and that tight end has got to stay healthy for 15, 16 games in order for that pick to work. They miss 3 to 4 games. It's very difficult because usually if you're drafting Kelsey in round 2, you're like, I'm good at tight end. I'm not taking my second tight end until round 17 to 20. And at that point, you're looking at someone that might not contribute for you the entire season. So it's also the mentality of what you do when you draft Kelsey, because you're not drafting if you take Kelsey in round 2 or 3, you're not taking a tight end in round 7 or 8. It doesn't make any sense.
Right. It doesn't make any sense. I couldn't agree more. For more on the Kansas City Chiefs, check us out at scoutfantasysports.com. We've got articles, podcasts, and of course, Sean Childs does a detailed analysis there of the Chiefs. You're not going to want to miss that. And once you get all your analysis, right, and all your questions answered by me and Adam, you're going to go to playffwc.com, join one of our leagues, get started, play, whether it's best ball, online championship, or the Fantasy Football World Championship, whether it's online or in Las Vegas at the Palms Hotel, the Real World Suite. I know I'm psyched about it. I know Adam is too, and we hope to see you there. This is Dr. Roto saying be well and take care.